right, what's up, everybody? So it is my pleasure today to introduce you to my friend and an amazing person doing amazing things for this world, Omade, a guy I've been speaking with for the last few months or so about an incredible project that we will be discussing today. And it's something that I'm so excited about. I know that everybody listening to this is going to think it's absolutely amazing. And in terms of increasing the peace on this earth, one of the best ways to do that is to reduce violence and to reduce the amount of destruction happening to the planet. And Omade has the project for that. So first of all, I think the best thing to do is give a more thorough introduction. So Omade, please give us a rundown. Tell us who you are and how you got to this point.
Hey, James. Really great to talk to you today. I'm Omade. I live in the UK. I'm 53 years old. I'm actually a Kurdish immigrant, so I was born in Iraq. I turned vegan when I was 24, so more than half of my life ago, quite a while back.
Whoa!
And
huge.
What it was actually, I was already vegetarian, and when I like many vegetarians, I kind of thought, well, you're not killing the cows. And then when I found out a little bit more about particularly the live exports of calves from the UK to France, I thought, well, enough. And I just stopped consuming any kind of animal products at all that time back. In terms of work, I set up a few marketing agencies, and I work now with tech companies on their marketing, particularly around emerging technology. So I'm really interested in the new stuff and how it gets adopted by businesses and how it enables new business models, hopefully how it makes the world a better place. Sometimes a bit of a discussion to have about that. And one of the things, an aspect of that which I find particularly interesting is how different ways of doing things create different business models, and those business models allow things to happen more, and technology often enables that. In fact, one of the projects I'm working on is to do with commercial ships, and what that does is it changes the way that commercial ships will be financed, rather than just relying on huge bank loans. Instead, allowing other people different people to take part in the financing of those ships, using alternative methods and technology for doing that. And what I find fascinating in all of that piece of work is the fact you can align, for instance, the ships which pollute the least, use the least fuel. I have the least negative impact on the environment. You can align that with making the most money. And so, I love the idea of aligning kind of positive impact in the work I do with commercial success. And the reason is Brilliant. That actually what that means is that you have more positive impact. It's less like hard work, more things happen. And so that's great.
That's awesome, man. It sounds like you've been living a very cool life for a long time now, not just in your personal life of making those food choices and things like that a vegan does, but taking things quite to another level, and getting this kind of cool ideas out there using the emerging tech. Awesome stuff, man. Stoked to hear it. Before we get into the project and talk a little bit about that, what was it like being a vegan 24 years ago?
It's funny. I ate a lot of jacket potatoes with beans, no butter, or maybe you might say hold the butter. But it was pretty good. I guess those days was before all of these kind of mock meat, fake meat products. I eat some of that now, but to be honest with you, I kind of generally stick to the basics. Actually, I'm a big advocate of just keeping it, basic, keeping it real. I have, as I say, I'm not young, but I have huge amounts of energy, and I put that down to large parts of my diet.
Totally, very much directly related to energy levels and also your brain power, mate. You're charging out there. And what about the way other people saw you? Because I'm sure there was a lot less vegans around there, a lot less people knowing about veganism. So how did people look at you? Already they look at it as weird. What about all the way back then?
Um, I guess I just used to make a joke out of having pointy ears, because usually they'd think you're something related to Captain Spock, because they wouldn't have heard of it.
Right.
I've
The only
probably
vegan they knew.
yeah, the only vegan in the village. I would. That's a kind of English joke.
Yeah, I've seen that series. What's it called again? What's it called?
God, I should remember. I should remember. But in the original, the guy's not a vegan. He's something else. Yeah.
See if it comes to us in it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
What I would say is that I've probably explained to people that vegan and vegetarian aren't the same thing over 1,000 times.
Wow.
Particularly in those days.
Same.
And you know,
yeah.
I don't know.
Totally. So you were using the word vegan 24 years ago?
Yeah. I mean, that's the word, you know,
Right.
that was the, you know, and if I'm honest, nowadays, I tend to use it less, actually, because it's, you know, it's become quite charged, and I'm really, really proud to be a vegan. It's a big part of who I am, I must say. But, you know, if you're kind of seeking to drive change, you kind of need to try and take people with you. And so that word's quite political.
Indeed.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, if I'm honest. It's just that if you're trying to get someone to kind of be aligned and help you out and go in a certain direction, sometimes it's better to use other language, you know.
Quite a loaded word.
Yeah, you know, I go to a few events and fancy dinners and whatever, and you know, I use it then because it's very clear to the catering staff. I guess in day-to-day life, I might kind of tone it down a bit. I would say, actually, interestingly, last year at some kind of marketing event I went to, it was the first time where the default option for the dinner was plant-based, and you had to actively choose the alternative, which would be animal-based.
Oh, interesting. Very good.
I thought that's pretty cool. And if that's
Very
the way,
cool.
if that's the beginnings of that happening, that kind of choice architecture just kind of helps the thing move forwards in the right direction, where you have to actively choose the other way.
I like it. It's definitely a good step in the right direction, for sure. Yes, it can not always be in your best interest to be a loud, vocal, proud vegan in the way that maybe it feels right to be, because you don't want to get people offside. And the good news is that even with vegans and people who aren't vegan and maybe have no interest in being vegan, we can still have many shared beliefs, many shared goals for animals, for the planet and the environment, and things like that, for employment issues and things like that. So there's a lot that we have in common regardless. And that's partly a pretty good intro to your project, I would say. So, Omaid, please give us a rundown of this project that you've been working on for the last year it is now, and let us know all about it.
Well, I'll give you the overview to start with, if that's okay. So what it was I had been thinking about, so, you know, part of what I do is I do some activism, which is the kind of, let's say, pokey stuff. And I'm very, very happy about how that creates dialogue. It doesn't necessarily drive change, but it changes what's normal to talk about. And I think that's important as the beginning of a kind of change process. And what I was thinking about is, in terms of my day, you know, my day job, what could I do to help enable change, you know, to act as a, rather than a kind of conversation provoker, more a enabler of transitioning. And I've been building up this idea over, as you say, 12 months. It's called Reef Farm Fund. And the idea of it is, what we want to do is deal with the issue that globally farming, or in particular animal farming, creates 14% of CO2 emissions, which is a huge category. And
Mm.
in terms of the land usage, it utilizes something like a third of all of the land globally. If you take out desert and ice, it's about half of all of the land. So it uses a
Wow,
huge amount of
that's
land,
incredible.
particularly the space that animals who are being farmed need, or are given to roam in. And also, increasingly around the world, those farmers find it really, really difficult to carry on in business. Just the dynamics of the system that demands food, and the processes that result in that, in food being created in that way, mean that unless you are a really, really kind of high scale, intense, let's say, factory type farmer, it's really, really touch and go whether you can make money or not. And I wanted to deal with all of those issues. And so the idea was to bundle those things up as a series of services and products, which we can use to take to farmers to, let's say, help them deal with those particular issues. The first bit is expertise around regenerative agriculture. Now, regenerative agriculture doesn't, there's a whole range of different things. Some of it includes animals, some of it doesn't. Our approach would be to minimize or remove the animals in the process. I don't believe it needs to be, the animals need to be there to improve the soil. I think there's plenty of other proven ways which are far more effective. That's the first thing. The second thing is, as a result of that, having documenting that using land management software, and we're building out partnerships with land management software providers, and so that's software that farmers would use to document their land, and where the fields are, how they're using them, what the inputs are, what their outputs are, all the way through to getting a sense of what the yields, the commercial yields will be for each land, so that they get a better, let's say, less intuitive, more data-driven sense of how the farm is doing. And in particular, we need this to track the impact of the change in farming that we would recommend through the expertise. Off the back of that, what that means is that we can better quantify the outputs. And one of the outputs is carbon capture, the effects of what we're doing. And so if we can clearly document that, then what that means is that the opportunity to take that carbon capture and issue it as carbon credits, which can then be marketed for a revenue stream for the farmers, becomes possible and much more scalable. Now, you take those things. Also, in particular countries, there's another kind of opportunity around biodiversity. So increasing biodiversity through sections of the land that might be rewilded and so on, and making a commercial virtue of that as well. It's in some countries, particularly in the UK, there are biodiversity credits that one can create if you document your activities in the right way, which are needed by certain people in other industries. So you take all of that, and then you talk to farmers and say, do you like the idea of this? And they say yes, and then you talk to them and they say, what's stopping you doing it anyway? And they said, well, it's the commercial risk. What if I don't have a yield? What if I can't stay afloat? And I would remember talking to the small to medium sized guys who touch and go where they're staying afloat anyway. So what we want to do is add on a transition capital to that, so the availability of either loans or equity finance, so that the farmers can manage their way through the transition with support. And that's fundamentally, in outline, let's say what our offer to farmers is that this is stuff that you as a farmer want to do anyway, probably because it's a good thing to do. It may be that you're really, really set in your ways, in which case, fine, carry on as you are. If you're interested in this, we're going to help you manage the process, give you the expertise, give you the data, give you the commercialization, and then also offer you the transition capital you need to make that happen.
Brilliant. All right, let me see if I summarize that correctly. Because there is certain issues regarding animal farming, such as the amount of carbon dioxide it produces, also the methane, the amount of land required, and that's just really tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of, the amount of waste created, the amount of feed needed, the amount of deforestation, all these things. So because of these issues, and also because farmers tend to be struggling a lot, there's a lot of them out there who are just making ends meet, working very hard, and just making ends meet, basically. You have an option for them to repurpose their land by ideally removing the animals and replacing it with something like, what would be an example?
So rotation-based arable. So on a multi-year rotation, and the point being, and I skipped over it when I first explained, is that if you do that, then your return on capital, so your return on the amount of effort and the commitment to the land, is higher. And the reason for that is it's less work intensive, but also the inputs are less. If you remove pesticides and if you remove chemical fertilizers, particularly the prices they are now, which is kind of spiked because of the because they're hydrocarbon based, in the issues around fuel supply and so on. Actually you increase your yield, you increase the amount you make off the land compared with cows or compared with pigs, whatever. And the question becomes, and this is where the expertise comes in, is if land's kind of been naturally optimized a certain way because that's what the farmer has been used to over generations, what are the opportunities, where the other methods, so so rotation-based arable, based on regenerative farming principles would work. And then also, obviously, the other things I alluded to is rewilding areas for the opportunities that provides and the positive impact that provides, and the carbon, positive carbon impact it provides. And then also the opportunity to use space as and where possible and necessary. And I think the rates that this will increase around renewable energy projects. So, whether it be solar, where the opportunities are, wind-based projects, but actively kind of embracing those, and other technologies that would, basically, as I said, reverse the negative carbon impact of the farming to make it positive, increase profit and increase profitability.
That's brilliant. And not only that, but take away a lot of the risk for the farmers who may be interested in doing it, maybe wishing someone would lend out a helping hand. And because of the way that Reef Farm Fund will be set up, it will be a safer bet for them because the initial investment and ongoing costs will be covered in a way where other people can get involved in supporting this and assisting the transition. That's right.
Yeah. So in a way, what we've been talking about so far is the re-farm side, and we should then have a conversation about the fund side.
Okay, let's do that.
Right. So the thing that's different about this project compared with lots and lots of other projects which are out there, which are amazing, let me be clear, are completely amazing, is that what we're trying to do is achieve these goals, not as a one-off or two-off or driven by well-meaning supporters and so on, but actually we want to work out how to do it at immense scale. And the insight that we had early on in the process is that you need money to do this. The insight we had is that rather than collect money from supporters, individuals who may, like a crowdfunding model or whatever, the trick or the magic is to take effectively this capital that we're investing in farms. So it's a solid return, because farming is solid, it's land based, there's limited supply, but the transitions that we're managing are carbon positive and have other positive impacts for the environment. So what that means is that capital is environmentally positive impact. Also, if what we're doing is supporting local communities, so they're making sure the farmers use local labor and are supported in situ, then that has a positive societal impact. So where we got to is that actually a great source of the capital that we will use is what's called ESG focused institutional funds. ESG is environmental, society, and governmental issues focused capital. And the truth is there's huge amounts of money available via pension funds and huge, let's say, institutional funds which have hundreds of millions and billions of pounds and dollars to invest, where the investors in the fund, so on the other side of the fund, are requesting that money is used in a positive impact way around the ESG principles. But there isn't enough places, there isn't enough in shares or opportunities for the fund managers to invest in particular environmental impact. And so our plan is to access that capital as the capital to which we will use as the transition capital for the farmers. And by doing it in that way, through what's called an alternative investment fund structure, is that will allow us to get to immense scale, because actually the amount of capital available is enormous.
I love it, mate. I love it. So the amount to scale is enormous. What is your big goal with this? Where do you see that this could go?
Well, okay, so certainly I'm in the UK. Most of the team that I've assembled are in the UK, but around Europe. And because there are particular issues here, we'll start in the UK. And the idea is to build up once we've done our first farm, which hopefully we'll do, either the first half of this year, so first half of 2023, to then go and get to thousands and thousands of hectares with a target of something like 0.5% of the UK land. That doesn't sound, that's actually a lot, and that there's an issue because not that much of the, it just depends how you access the land, whether we are providing, as you say, loan capital to transition capital to farmers in the form of a loan, or actually equity investment. You see, the other aspect of this is that we will start to, as farms become available in the UK just to purchase, we'll just purchase them outright and employ local farmers and so on, and local workers, and just implement the plans from scratch, where in the sad scenarios where increasing numbers of farmers are giving up because no one in the family wants to carry on, or for various other reasons that they've had to make their farm available. There are other models too, actually, and what we've identified is that many farms, when the land is sold off, what they do is they sell it to the people around, the farmers around, so they kind of split the farm amongst the local farmers. And so one of our ideas is that when we're supporting a farmer who's maybe taken transition capital in the form of a loan, if that farmer wants to expand their operations as they kind of move in the Reef Farm Fund approach, and that farmer's neighbor is selling, then actually that land is land that the Reef Farm Fund could purchase, and then that farmer run as effectively as a tenant farmer on the land that's equity purchased by Reef Farm Fund. And so the farmer gets a larger plot to work with, and so on. So, we're kind of getting into the details of how we might grow the fund, i.e. grow the amount of land under management. And I've kind of alluding to the fact we have a dual model where some of it is farmers who own their land or rent their land and actually work with us as a service and provide capital for that. And the other side is where we become equity investors, either in the actual farms itself, or in, where a farmer's reached out to us, or where we buy land outright from the market. And we have been working with estate agents, Stratton Parker in the UK, around that to prove the business model and so on, and to kind of build momentum around that. And so, which are a very, very good source of farmland as it becomes available. And beyond the UK, clearly we're looking for opportunities once we get up and running elsewhere. And let's say the kind of local opportunities and dynamics will vary country by country, where depending on what the transitions in that particular place, each place are, and what the rules are around farming and so on. But put it this way, we have an ambition to get to some significant scale, remembering that we're not trying to own all the farmland. What we're trying to do is make a really, really big point, going back to the beginning of our conversation, which is where we're enabling this transition. We're proving it's good for the planet. We're proving it's good financially. And then we're kind of making a statement back to the rest of the farming industry saying, come on then.
Yeah. Why would you not?
Sense. What
exactly. 1 + 1.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at with it, and I guess it was the point I made when you asked me to explain it, is that we're looking to enable the transition, effectively demonstrate that this is possible, it makes sense, and then to act as an encouragement for the rest of the industry to move in this direction.
Totally. Sounds absolutely phenomenal, mate. And at this point, after 12 years of studying this and learning about this and working with Strutt and Parker and all the things you've been doing behind the scenes, where are you at right now? What's going on, and what's been done already?
Great, thank you. Yeah, so we've got a great team. We've got the interest of a number of backers who are kind of very, very interested in what we're doing. We're connecting with UK industry and UK government. I would say the key thing that we need to do now is build up our bank of case studies of farming transitions. So we've got a great team, growing team of people interested in business and in farming and in finance. But there's a particular requirement where we're seeking out partnerships with farmers who are interested in this kind of transition. It may be they're already doing this kind of transition, and what we want to do is work with them to get their numbers, so that we can build out a series of different case studies that show that actually this makes positive environmental impact, and it makes commercial sense. If I'm honest, I haven't seen a case study yet where that doesn't happen. We just need a bank of case studies, and we're building up that bank of case studies. So I'm super eager for anyone listening to this to who's in that world or knows people in that world, farmers who are looking to do things differently, looking to have a positive environmental impact, looking to reduce or eliminate the role of animals on their land, for the reasons I've said, not getting into vegan arguments, but getting into clear environmental impact arguments,
make more money as well,
and commercial arguments. Yeah. Then we'd be very, very pleased to talk to them. And the idea is that we're collecting those case studies in Q1 this year. We've got several now. I want to get to 10 really strong ones, and then we'll carry on the journey from there, taking that case and those impacts as we establish the corporate structures, and we're taking those case and impacts to the investment fund managers who we've started to speak to verify the structures we're using, and then get started. It may be that actually some of the backers we're talking to back us to get started beforehand, i.e. inject a slug of capital into the fund, which we can immediately start talking to farmers about to transition. Or it may be that it takes a while to get to the point when we can get capital from those institutions later on in the year to get us going. We will see.
Yeah, either way, it's just a matter of time, I'm sure. So the big call to action here for anybody watching or listening to this is we need case studies. Omade needs case studies. He needs farmers that are interested in transitioning, farmers that are already transitioning, and that is going to help a lot give legs to this project and get it flying and get these farms transitioning. So anybody who can help us with that, reach out to me or Omaid and we'll discuss it. I'll leave Omaid's details in the description for you all. Omaid, you got anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, check out, we've got a basic website at the moment, reeffarm.fund. Check that out. You can register there. And also, if you're personally interested in being involved in the project, as I say, either if you're interested in farming or regenerative farming, these kind of transitions, if you're involved in finance or fintech, again, very, very happy to hear from folks who might want to get involved to, and get this bus on the road.
Absolutely, man. It's a freight train, this thing. Absolutely awesome. All right, Omaid, well, let's leave it there for now. I'm sure we'll be speaking again about this project in the near future with some more updates. Until then, it was a real pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for sharing about Reef Farm Fund. And thank you so much for all the work you have done and having the insight and using your skills to make it a reality. Awesome stuff, man. I'm sure.
Thanks, James. Good to see you today.
Yeah, brother. I'm sure you're very excited, as am I, and as are every other person out there who has common interest as we do. So awesome stuff, man. And chat to you again one day very soon.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, brother.